On Thursday, 22nd May 2014, the Thai military took control of the government in an apparent coup d'etat. The move came after the military-hosted talks between the rival political factions failed to reach a compromise to end nearly 7 months of mass protests that killed 28 people. The coup took place a few weeks after Thai Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra was forced to step down. She was found guilty by the Constitutional Court of Abuse of Power and is now the 4th elected premier to be ousted since the military coup of 2006, which toppled former Prime Minister, her brother, Thaksin Shinawatra. Has the time come for the Shinawatras to give up the fight? And will the latest military coup plunge Thailand into even deeper turmoil? An uneasy calm hangs over the city of Bangkok, a day after the Thai Army Chief General Prayuth Chan-o-cha announced a military takeover in the deeply divided kingdom. The military coup came just 2 days after the Army Chief imposed martial law to help restore order and prevent an escalating conflict following months of street protest, which have paralyzed the country's governance and left 28 people dead. 6 months of anti-government protest reached its peak early this month when Thailand's Constitutional Court ordered Ms. Yingluck Shinawatra to step down from her post as Prime Minister, along with 9 other cabinet ministers. Her supposed crime was to remove the country's then Chief of National Security, Tawin Bliansi, in 2011. The court ruled that Ms. Yingluck's action was dishonest and improper because it was intended to pave the way for her brother-in-law, Priyopan Damapong, to be promoted as the National Police Chief. The controversial May 7th ruling marks the 3rd time a pro-Thaksin government has been ousted by the judiciary following the 2006 military coup, which removed Thaksin Shinawatra from power. In 2008, the Constitutional Court stripped then Prime Minister Samak Sunthrawet of his powers. It ruled that Mr. Samak had illegally accepted payments for hosting television cooking shows. That same year, his successor, Somchai Wongsawat, was also removed from office. He was also banned from politics for 5 years after being found guilty of electoral fraud. Both politicians had been heavily criticized by the opposition for being closely aligned to former Premier Thaksin Shinawatra. And now, Ms. Yingluck. Leaders of the Per-Thai party were quick to react, describing the verdict against Ms. Yingluck as another virtual coup against a democratic government and a conspiracy to remove the party from power.
The power to transfer or promote the Secretary General of the National Security Council is in her authority.
Have the right to remove a government official who obviously, could not get along with the government. I think, the Prime Minister, and I'm not defending Yingluck, but I think the Prime Minister had that right to remove any government official who fail to serve the interests of the government. So I think to me, this is just a normal reshuffle routine that could have happened anywhere, for any administration. It goes to show a sense of desperation, on the part of the enemy of Thaksin and Yingluck to even pick on a smaller point in order to overthrow her.
Ms. Yingluck, however, respected the outcome of the court verdict and relinquished her post without a fight. Her sudden disappearance from the country's political scene was as quick as her dramatic rise to power in a landslide victory in 2011. But not her supporters. For them, the fight was far from over. Tens of thousands of the red shirts gathered in huge numbers just outside the capital to vent their anger at the court's verdict. They warned that any attempt to remove a democratically elected government could trigger a civil war. Former spokesperson of the Red Shirt movement, 64-year-old Sean Bunprachong, is among thousands of Red Shirt supporters who have vowed to continue the fight in defense of democracy in the country. He remains upset over the recent decision by the Constitutional Court to remove Ms. Yingluck from power and describes her forced dismissal as an abuse of democratic process.
They are trying to more or less destroy the elected government for the past 3 prime ministers. Those who live outside of Bangkok, particularly the north and the northeast, there are 15 million of those who vote for Pheu Thai party, felt a sense of injustice.
You know, there's enough unhappy red shirt people around in Thailand to create a turmoil if they really want to, if they're unhappy enough. And I guess whether they could really come to that level of a civil war is something which I hope not. I hope that we can have a negotiable solution where both sides are able to work peacefully. And no one wants war here.
Civil war is an extreme scenario, but certainly right now what's poised to happen is perhaps increased violence from the pro-government red shirt supporters. And that risk will increase markedly if the opposition goes ahead with its plans or threats to oust the current caretaker administration and install an interim prime minister.
The judicial coup against Prime Minister Yingluck and 9 of her cabinet ministers have severely crippled the Pheu Thai-led caretaker government. Adding to the pressure is the PDRC's efforts to stage a final showdown to overthrow the embattled caretaker government of Prime Minister Niwat Tamrong Bunsongpaisan. But nothing could prepare them for what was to come next. A cacophony of songs and cheers reverberated through the streets of Bangkok as anti-government protesters reacted with jubilation, the day when the Constitutional Court dismissed Prime Minister Yingluck Shinawatra from office. But for the PDRC, the fight to eradicate elements of Thaksin's regime was far from over. Protest leader Suthep Thakksuban, who led the protest movement, has called for a final push to bring an end to the current government before sweeping reforms can take place. A call backed by members of the Democrat Party.
There is a debate going on whether half the cabinet, the headless cabinet without a prime minister, is it illegal or not. They should resign and pave way for a caretaker government in order to carry out the reform process, to improve the election rules to make it free and fair.
That view is also echoed by 28-year-old Akanat Prompana, PDRC spokesperson and the stepson of protest leader Suthep Thakksuban. PDRC's key objective, he says, is to force the incumbent caretaker government out of office by purging all pro-Thaksin elements. Only then can democratic reforms take its course.
What we're fighting against is Thaksin regime, which is fundamentals. It's not about a person, it's not about Thaksin or Yingluck or his family. And I think from the court's decision, I think from our movement, it's, we have revealed a lot of symptoms of this disease that we call Thaksin regime a disease. We have revealed a lot of symptoms, and this is why we have attracted and drawn so many people to come out.
Sensing trouble, on Tuesday, 20th May 2014, the army imposed a state of martial law in the country without consulting the caretaker government and began the process of mediation between the key rival factions to bring an end to the 7-month-old conflict. But 2 attempts by the army chief to find a negotiated settlement failed to achieve the desired outcome. That was when he decided to seize control of the government. The constitution was temporarily suspended and nighttime curfew was imposed throughout the country. The military has now assumed control of the country's security, while the police, seen as to be heavily supportive of Thaksin and his allies, have been sidelined.
The day after the declaration of martial law, or rather the morning after, the group of senators had announced that it was still prepared to go to the Constitutional Court to seek an adverse ruling against the Pheu Thai government, which adverse ruling would likely have resulted in the Pheu Thai's removal. So although this is speculative, it's possible that the military saw at this point that the removal of the Pheu Thai government was imminent in any case, and so preemptively moved in to stage a coup in order to capitalize on the element of surprise and enhance its operational ability to secure Bangkok.
The army takeover, however, has drawn swift international condemnation, with the US reviewing its aid and military ties with the country.
I think the military understands so well that the coup which the military used to stage in the past cannot be done at this present time, because a lot of people oppose the coup and will not tolerate the coup. Furthermore, international community voiced strongly against the coup.
There have been at least 18 actual and attempted military takeovers since 1932, when Thailand first became a constitutional monarchy. The last one was in 2006, when billionaire Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra was toppled by the military in a bloodless coup. The latest move to seize the country through unconstitutional means will likely bring the level of conflict to a new level.
ยืนยันว่าถ้ามีการล้มล้างระบอบประชาธิปไตยเมื่อใดหรือพลเอกประยุทธ์จันทร์โอชากระทำเกินกว่าการประกาศใช้กฎอัยการศึกนั่นก้าวข้ามไปถึงการรัฐประหารหรือการล้มล้างรัฐธรรมนูญหรือไม่ปฏิบัติตามรัฐธรรมนูญคนเสื้อแดงก็ไม่มีทางเลือกอย่างอื่นเพราะนี่เป็นองค์กรประชาธิปไตยมีหน้าที่รักษาไว้ซึ่งระบอบประชาธิปไตยและเราจะต่อสู้กันให้ถึงที่สุด
In the case of Thailand, if you just look at the past military coup from 2006, the military's involvement essentially just puts a stop and a hold on the situation. It doesn't resolve the political problem. And if the underlying political problems haven't been resolved, you are essentially back to square one. And the military is aware of this. They are probably conscious right now that they would rather not be used as tools or pawns by any political party of either side. So they would want to stay out as far and as long as they can. But if the violence starts to increase, then almost certainly they will come to step in.
We don't see the coup as any sort of solution, certainly not a long-lasting one. We think that the coup is risk negative and it will likely plunge Thailand even more deeply into a more protracted and prolonged paralysis because both sides have become more entrenched in their positions. The country is now more polarized and there is, in fact, less optimism for a solution to be reached at this point.
It has now become a battle of wills among the various political forces in Thailand. The anti-government PDRC movement remained defiant until the very last minute. Before he was taken away by the army, its leader, Suthep Thaugsuban, vowed to step up its campaign to topple the government, despite the imposition of martial law by the military to quell political violence in the country.
พวกเรายังมีสิทธิเสรีภาพที่จะชุมนุมโดยสงบปราศจากอาวุธมีสิทธิที่จะลุกขึ้นต่อต้านโค่นล้มรัฐบาลตามบทบัญญัติแห่งรัฐธรรมนูญทุกประการ
The crisis which has plagued Thailand is only the latest installment of a near-decade-long power struggle between ousted former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra and the royalist establishment. After losing 4 prime ministers in quick succession, has the time now come for Thaksin and his allies to give up the fight? The Central World Plaza, which stands proudly in the heart of Bangkok's shopping district, is a constant reminder of the dark days in Thai political history. The building was reduced to scorched rubble after a bloody military crackdown against red-shirt protesters in 2010, left more than 90 people dead and nearly 1,900 wounded in a series of street clashes. Now, just days after the 4th anniversary of the crackdown, the troops are back on the streets again. This time, they've assumed full control of the country to prevent the worsening and threatening situation from spinning out of control. How the political endgame will unfold remains unclear. For now, weary residents are waiting with bated breath as the Army Chief, General Prayut Chan-o-cha, considered to be an arch-royalist and staunchly anti-Thaksin, plans his next move.
History in this regard provides that useful template, and what we're likely to see is, at this point, an interim administration installed for up to a year, whilst the constitution is rewritten or amended in order to change the calibration of power, in order to break the Pheu Thai's monopoly and dominance over Thailand's political sphere. So we're not likely to see elections take place for at least a year.
The PDRC had been pushing hard for a sweeping reform of the parliamentary system, knowing full well that another round of free elections will bring back the party allied to Thaksin to power. The leaders remain adamant in their mission to root out Thai politics of Thaksin's influence and reinvent the wheel.
We're saying that this country will need to be reformed. A new set of rules that is acceptable by all the people will need to be in place. And once we've done with the reform, you can go back to election.
Thailand is struggling with itself to get rid of the evils of politics, namely this patent client money politics type of relationship where authority is confined to a leader named of Thaksin. So it is not democracy in that way, or to have a proxy government which is in itself is not independent from the command and control of Mr. Thaksin over his sister, Prime Minister Yingluck.
Analysts have attributed this cycle of conflict to the age-long struggle for influence between two camps. The royalist-backed urban middle-class elites who are increasingly worried about their waning influence and relevance in Thai politics, and the people loyal to former Prime Minister Thaksin Shinawatra, especially the poor and the rural Thais who have benefited from Thaksin's populist policies.
This is about the anxiety, on the part of the traditional elite when they look ahead and they see uncertain future. That's why they become anxious about it, and they know that they have to take control of the political situation. In so doing, they have to eliminate Thaksin from politics so that they could take control over the transition that would be coming up. But they are not realistic because getting rid of Thaksin that way will not work. I think Thaksin political influence has long entrenched in Thai politics, and it would be almost impossible to be rid of.
Basically, the real battle is between the big financier, the capital, the big capital that was formerly financing Thai politics in a peaceful way, financing all political parties, and they were in harmony. Of course, they need the votes of the grassroots to install them into power. But when Thaksin came into power, Thaksin made a real division between the financier. Either they are with Thaksin or not with Thaksin. Therefore, the financier which is not in Thaksin's group were unhappy. As a result, once they gain ground and they can regroup themselves and collect themselves together as a group, they try to fight back.
And so far, they've been successful in forcing the dismissal of 4 prime ministers either through military or judicial coups. At the outset, parties allied to the fugitive former Prime Minister Thaksin appear to be fighting a losing battle against royalist and middle-class elites, which are determined to boot them out of power. And now, the army. How much more can they take? Has the time come for the Shinawatras to give up the fight for control and influence in Thai politics?
I think anyone should be able to form government if they come the normal way, the proper way. No one should really penalize them in a biased fashion.
I think the problem with the Thai elite is that they also lack political imagination. They cannot imagine, the future, or the future that, sometimes, power has to be shared, either with Thaksin or, with the new forces. They still believe, they still think in terms of, zero-sum game, especially when they look ahead, that if either they win all and Thaksin lose all, or they lose all and Thaksin win all. And obviously, they do not to be the loser in this kind of game.
I believe in democracy. I believe in the people. So finally, democracy and the will of the people will prevail. Nobody can resist this.
Thailand is at a critical crossroads with deepening rifts and growing risk of more turmoil and mayhem. If the military decides to widen its role in Thai politics, the possibility of conflicts and violence may grow and become increasingly uncontrollable. Without a political compromise to end the protracted crisis, a smooth all-out cure out of the current political quagmire may just be a distant dream.